Welcome back to the Boot Tragedies. We're going to talk about Jameis Winston and if the Saints should bring him back to the team. First off, we'll start off with his stats from last season. Very short because he only played in 3 games, the first 3 games of the season before, being injured. Threw for 858 yards, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Now, those numbers aren't not good by any, stretch of the imagination, but it does come with a little asterisk. The first game, he threw for 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Honestly, the first 3 quarters didn't really play well, but that last quarter, the fourth quarter, him and Michael Thomas got in a rhythm, got a connection, and they started going crazy. That was a really, really good ending to that Falcons game. So he played pretty good in that game. And that second game against the Bucs, it was just all bad. He was playing pretty well, but the Saints got behind. He threw 2 picks against the same coverage. It was just looking like the old Jameis Winston, like the guy that used to play for Tampa Bay. That was a very bad game, in my opinion, from him. I believe that's the game he got injured as well. Well, he was injured in the Falcons game, I believe. So he was basically injured all 3 games, starting this season. Now, that's not an excuse, and we don't really have to talk about last season because we're looking forward to next season, and we're going to talk about should the Saints bring him back. Now, it's definitely some pros and some cons, to bringing Jameis Winston back. Starting with one of the pros is he's familiar with the system already. He's been under Sean Payton for a year. Then Pete Carmichael was there. Now he's been under Pete Carmichael for a year as the offensive coordinator, the lead guy. So he knows the system, doesn't have to learn anything. If you bring a new quarterback in or a rookie quarterback in, they're going to have to learn the system. And the Sean Payton offense, even though it's a Pete Carmichael offense, but it's the same, type things. It's a very hard offense to learn. It'll be definitely tough for a rookie. Now, if you obviously brought in Derek Carr, a guy that's, veteran experience, it'll be a little easier for him to pick up. So that definitely would, bode well for Jameis Winston. Also, he's a vet at this point. He's a veteran at this point, man. He's been in the league for a long, long time. Obviously not calling him old by any stretch of the imagination, but this is about to be year 9. Year 9 for Jameis Winston. That's almost a decade in the NFL, man. So that's definitely a veteran presence. The guys in the locker room like him. He seems like, he's cool with everybody, in the locker room from a player standpoint. The coaches seem to like him as a person. Now, as a quarterback, that's a different story. But as a person, they seem to like him. So that, that goes well for him as well. He has a big arm to fit this offense, man. You got a guy like Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. I wish we could have got, to see those guys with Jameis Winston on a more consistent basis. Obviously, Olave was a rookie in the games Jameis Winston played in. I mean, obviously, he was a rookie for the whole season, but you're really, really a rookie the first couple games of the season. And then Jameis Winston went out. And then Rashid Shaheed didn't even, get cleared to play coming off the ACL injury, so he never even got to play with Jameis Winston. Would have loved to see those 2 guys together because we definitely saw Rashid, catching some underthrown balls this year that probably could have been for big plays. Also, the contract situation now, he doesn't make a lot of money, especially, for a starting quarterback in the NFL. That'll definitely be a pro, for Jameis Winston. Starting quarterbacks are going for $30+ million. We saw the report that Derek Carr wants $35 million. So with Jameis Winston coming, he'll be on a small contract. If you brought him back, you will avoid the dead money that will come, with his contract, which is like $11 or $12 million. So those are things that's going, in his favor. Will they bring him back? I have no idea. But those are some pros. Now, some cons. The biggest con, in my opinion, is Dennis Allen just doesn't seem like he wants to play Jameis Winston. That's just my opinion. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what it looked like. The last game of the season basically showed me everything I needed to see. The Saints were not in anything. That game was meaningless, and he did not play Jameis Winston whatsoever. Now, if he was still hurt, he was still hurt. But, I mean, it's the last game of the season. If the guy's healthy, he should have been out there playing over Andy Dalton just because. It was no reason to play Andy Dalton in that game. That we won that game, lost that game, it wouldn't have mattered. So, obviously, from that aspect, I just don't think it'll be smart for them to bring him back if the coaches don't want to play him and things like that. So, another con for Jameis Winston is, like I said, he's been in the league for a long time. Maybe teams feel he is what he is. I know a lot of people still think he has potential to grow, and you still do. From a quarterback standpoint, we're seeing guys playing to their 40s at this point or late 30s. So he's still young from a quarterback standpoint. He still has maybe 5, 6, 7 really, really good years left in him. Obviously, he still has the arm talent, probably some of the best arm talent in the NFL, man. Probably only behind, the Josh Allens, the Pat Mahomes, and things like that when we're talking strictly arm talent. So that's always going to be there for Jameis Winston. But maybe people in the NFL just think he is what he is at this point, and it's just, it's a guy, the stigma around Jameis Winston is it's a guy that's going to turn the ball over, a guy that's going to take risks and things like that. He just won't come in and be a game manager. And some of those things are true, some of those things are false. I'm not here to debate those things. But as far as the Saints bringing them back, in my opinion, it's a wait-and-see game. I know that's not the answer people are looking for. It's February, man. It's still February, almost March. It's a wait-and-see game for me. Obviously, they're kicking the hinges on Derek Carr. Let's see where that leads. If it's going to be $35 million, I tweeted. That's a no from me. That's a no for me if you got to pay Derek Carr $35 million to be your starting quarterback. Because if we're being honest, how much better is Derek Carr than Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston? Now, I'll give it to you. I'll even give it to you that he's better. And some people don't believe that. But for sake of argument, let's say he is better. Let's say Derek Carr is better than Jameis Winston. Let's say he's better than Andy Dalton. I'm a believer that he is, but not by much. Not by much. But let's say that he is better. Now, Derek Carr at $35 million, or you got somebody at Jameis Winston who's going to be like a $10 to $15 million cap hit. Or you got Andy Dalton who signed for 1 year's $3 million last year. Now, that was to be the backup quarterback. Obviously, if he's going to be the starter, that number may be, around 9 to 10 million or something like that. So basically, it comes down to would you want a guy for $35 million and maybe it's a multi-year deal, so a guy you're stuck with. If he performs well, then it'll be a bargain. But if he doesn't perform well, now you just have a big contract on your books and a guy that can't really play quarterback for you. So you definitely don't want that. Or you can go the route of Jameis Winston being on a 1 year deal and Andy Dalton coming back on a 1 year deal. Maybe you even draft a quarterback. Who knows what you do, but it'll be a much cheaper option. And maybe you can spread that money around the roster and get better at positions of need, like the defensive line, the edge, the interior of the defensive line, maybe a safety or something like that, maybe another receiver. So it's options for the Saints. I don't know what we'll do at the quarterback position, but on the Jameis Winston front, I think it's a win-win for the Saints. If they get rid of him, it kind of helps. Just get rid of the Jameis Winston. The fans will stop talking about him. Obviously, he's not going to be on the team anymore. So, and, whoever the quarterback is won't have that over their head of, play Jameis Winston, because he's always going to be a fan favorite. He's always going to be a fan favorite. It's almost like when Tebow was coming up. I'm not comparing him to Tebow because obviously he's a much better quarterback than Tebow ever was in the NFL. But whatever team brought Tebow in, and the fans started chanting, Tebow. They wanted Tebow to play. I think that's kind of how it is with Jameis Winston right now. If he's not playing, the fans are going to want him to play. Almost, anywhere he goes, unless he goes, sit behind Pat Mahomes or something like that, then obviously the fans won't be chanting for Jameis Winston. But if he plays for the Saints and Andy Dalton's your quarterback, or if he was the backup to Derek Carr and he had a bad game, fans will start chanting for Jameis Winston. Fans would want, Jameis Winston to have a chance. That's what happens when you have a guy with that much arm talent and just that much talent in general. You're not the number one pick without being talented. Now, I have no idea what the Saints would do, but let me know what y'all think. What would y'all do with Jameis Winston? Would y'all bring him back on a 1 year deal? Some of y'all may extend him, 5 years, $100 million, because some of y'all are crazy like that. Would you just cut him, release him, let him, try to start his career somewhere else and, maybe do something for another team? It's a lot of options they couldn't do. It's going to come with a dead cap if they let him go because, we added like 5 void years on the end of his contract and things like that. Maybe it'll be renegotiated to, fit the Saints salary cap and things like that because, we've played with the cap all summer, every summer. And eventually, we're going to have to, stop doing that. But that's a different story for a different day. But let me know what y'all think about the Jameis Winston situation in the comments below. As always, this is the Boo Tragedy Cinema.